Predator's Errand, Part 3, Crooked Crossroads. This is how Jacob met Smedley. Out hunting near Lazy Beast Creek, late spring 1820, I came across a timber wolf bitch and a grizzly bear trading fangs and claws. Behind them I see the wet, broken remnants of her cubs. The wolf bitch doesn't last long, but the bear loses an eye and a nice sized chunk of his right shoulder. I put an arrow in the back of his neck to get his attention. He turns to charge me and I put another one in his mouth. I checked the den and sure as shit there's a survivor. White with faint silver markings and one gold eye, one blue eye. I leave him be and turn my attention to field dressing the bear. As soon as the guts hit the ground, the cub darts out of the den and buries his snout in him. He looks up at me with his muzzle all matted with gore and lets out a growl on the bark. I know about being an orphan, so I felt a bittersweet kinship with the little monster. The silver hair and friendly disposition reminded me of a wily old trapper I knew when I was a kid named Smedley. I took him home and made him my familiar. His intelligence, loyalty, and skill as a predator are an honor and a blessing to have in my circle. Isaiah and I trained him together in the traditions of the Uncle Hanway Wolf Witches. The journey opened up my animal kinship powers, and when the training was done, Smedley and I could speak to each other in our minds, see through each other's eyes, and dream walk together. Warby taught Isaiah to do the same in his dreams and mushroom visions. We keep following wagon tracks north. There's a row of tracks next to the wagons that would make no sense if I hadn't seen that fucking monster back at Lazy Beast. Hard to tell how many, but there were a lot, marching next to the caravan. Smedley says we're about 5 miles behind them. Isaiah says we should camp this afternoon and move at night. The moon is full. We find a shady spot and post up for the afternoon. Smedley says, "Do you hear that?" Isaiah says, "I don't hear shit." Smedley says, "Right. No birds, no squirrels, nothing." Isaiah says, "I reckon the stench of rotting flesh tends to run the critters off. These cockknockers ain't hard to track, that's for sure." Okay, back to Jacob, Algernon, and Morgana. Inside the tent, Groundthorn stands there with his bodyguard outside Jacob's cage. Morgana walks in accompanied by 3 undead wolves with ram's horns fixed to their skulls with iron staples. She walks over to Jacob's cage and says, "Look alive, sweetheart. Time to play." Groundthorn says, "I gave him a potion that should keep him in his lupine form. And please remember, when you're playing, that we need him alive." Morgana says, "Oh, come now, I would never harm my favorite pet. Not permanently, anyway. And besides, he regenerates." Groundthorn says, "Yes, that's why I need him alive. I have to study him. He's functionally immortal. Hiding somewhere in his being is the key to the elixir vitae." Morgana says, "What about the other one?" Groundthorn says, "He's tracking us as we speak. He should be here soon. Have your fun, but remember, I want camp made by sunset." Morgana says, "I started the slaves unloading the wagons before I came here." And she winks at him with her one eye. Groundthorn smiles and says, "I'll be tending my plants if you need me." Then he turns to his bodyguard and says, "Go help them prepare the camp." Okay, back to Wilhelm and Miranda. They're sitting in a small tent outside one of the burned out towns. Wilhelm sits in the moonlight, staring at the brain, absently caressing the glass. Miranda says, "There were dozens of people here. I can see the past through the eyes of the dead. Here, let me show you, my love." Wilhelm falls backwards on his ass and starts scooting away from the brain with panic in his eyes. He pulls his knees up and starts rocking back and forth with his head in his hands. Back to Isaiah and Smedley. We travel at night. If it gets too dark for me, I can just look through Smedley's eyes until I get my bearings. It's a little trick him and Jacob taught me in a dream during his training. Smedley says, "I found some tracks. Something circled around behind us." Isaiah says, "What kind of tracks?" Smedley says, "Looks like hooves in back and bear paws in front." Isaiah says, "It thinks it's hunting us. Let it. Come on back and we'll find a good place to bushwhack the motherfucker." Smedley hides next to the road and I post up in a tree. We smell the goddamn thing long before it comes around the corner. The body and hindquarters of an elk, the arms of a bear. The riding head has 2 sets of antlers. Where the neck meets the chest, they're human arms with blades instead of hands. When it gets in range, I put a slug in the chest. The fucking thing explodes with enough force to knock me out of the tree and onto my head 15 feet down. I wake up in the back of a wagon in a cage with Smedley. A large tent on a mountain plateau halfway between the sea and the sky. Inside the tent, the townsfolk are strapped to chairs in a circle around the center ring. On a pedestal stands Algernon with Morgana beside him on a shorter pedestal. Around the ring, Morgana's beasts are snapping and straining against their chains in front of the townsfolk. The 2 rings to the left and right have large cages. The left ring holds Miranda's body, which now has the head of a jackal. Under her right arm is her empty rotting head, her long hair wrapped around her like a dress. And the cage on the right holds Jacob, who's in his lupine form. Crownthorne says, after receiving my medical degree, I was approached by a group of missionaries who wished me to accompany them to the Amazon. My lifelong fascination with magic and drugs compelled me to go with them. For years, we explored the most remote and archaic places in the world, from South America to the Caribbean, and even the Antarctic and Alaska. Every tribe we encountered had 2 things in common: tattoos, or branding and scarification, and rituals involving a psychedelic potion and the invocation of the primal gods and spirit beasts of the wildwood. As I learned more forms of primitive magic and the discipline of shamanic alchemy, the spirits of the wildwood began calling to me in my dreams. It was in these dreams that I conceived of the notion of creating a tattoo ink that, when enchanted, could allow the bearer to manifest the powers represented by the image of the tattoo. Many savages died in the process of perfecting the formula for the ink. The offerings and incantations necessary to infuse the ink with the wildwood magic would require a revision quest to secure. And so I left the village and went deep into the jungle with only a loincloth and a knife. For months I stalked the twisted path the savages called the Way of the Claw and Thorn. It is the final rite of passage for every witch doctor and jungle shaman. The first step is to purify oneself, to strip away all facades and coverings, to stand naked in the wild and to survive alone. Next, the covenant of the blood is established with the primal gods and spirit beasts. This ritual also makes shaman blood kin to the spirit of the land, which connects him directly to the wildwood magic. As the days, then weeks and months passed, I felt more alive than ever I had. My muscles grew hard and my senses grew keen. The blood I spilled onto the ground every day animated the spirit beasts who became my allies. The more prey I took, the more I was seen as an alpha predator in the eyes of the primal gods and spirit beasts. On the full moon of the 9th month, he of darkness and wild wooded places himself came to me and bestowed upon me the path to my transformation and the power to manifest it. I returned to the village. Like a shadow, I crept from hut to hut, offering the blood of the savages to the gods and spirits of the jungle, sparing only the tattoo artist. For days we worked to adorn my body with the runes and sigils that he of darkness and wild wooded places had given me. The artist did not survive the testing phase of the ritual, torn apart by the unseen beasts who had been driven into an ecstatic state of bloodlust by the ritual. In my right hand I bear the power over life and death, and in my left I carry the seal of the primal elements. I wield the forces that move all tides and seasons. Immortality is my destiny and my right. The undying creatures I shall create will make the world run red. Okay, that's part 3, Crooked Crossroads. Up next, part 4, Blood and Stardust. So, sweet water and good hunting to you. Until our paths cross again.